Hey, we're here and we're back with Miss Erin Frame, who contributed quite a bit to what I built up with podcasting. She's so nice, she's so smart, she's so cool. Erin Frame is a Tucson-based realtor with a passion for community connection and delivering exceptional results. She guides clients through every stage of the real estate journey at Bale and Frame Realty Group, and she is in Tucson, Arizona, the Catalina Foothills. She has a very excellent podcast called the LowDown, and she is one of the most bubbly personality people I've seen. The little clips, the skits, she's so hilarious. So we're going to talk about all sorts of amazing things about the Catalina Foothills area, about how realtors stand out, mistakes she's made, sober fierce, podcasting, business, so much more. So, Miss Erin, glad to speak with you, and after all these years, finally meet you.
I know, it's shocking. We definitely met during the pandemic, and like we were trying to figure out if we've ever seen each other face to face. And I think this is the first time. I feel like I know
Yeah.
you though.
Right. And
Totally.
yeah,
Right?
and there's a handful of people I'm like that with. It's like when you tune into the radio or you watch the morning news or a talk show and like you see this person all the time and they kind of just
Yep.
get like embedded in your mind and you're like, and now I don't even know if I feel like I've talked with and met with this
I know. We're
person.
like, I guess not. It's great.
Yeah,
It's great to finally see you and talk to you in person, other than just the phone.
yeah, likewise. And it's one of those silly things where like when you do it, right, you do these kind of, I don't know if it's like performative, but like you show your personality and you connect with people, and in the moment it seems like it's not doing much, right? It's not really doing
Mhm.
moving the needle. But when you make it a habit, then eventually when it does come time for someone to know, like, and trust you, and if they're looking for a home or looking to have a chat, then a lot of the barriers are already broken down, aren't they? Because you just put in the work ahead of time, and then you
Yep.
are someone that is already known. And realtors are great with this, right? Because every town has at least a handful where you know their picture, you see them on the signs or on the park bench. And so,
Yep.
tell me about what you do as far as real estate and realtoring. What do you think you do that stands out in these ways?
I think a big part of the way I conduct business is just really trying to connect on a personal level more so than a business, transactional level. One of the things I definitely believe in is doing a lot of Facebook. I know that's probably, I don't do the Instagram as much, but because I'm a little bit older, but just putting a lot of really good quality information out there, trying to educate people, even though they might never use me. I don't care if they go use somebody else, like truly having that belief that whether or not they use me, I was there to help them in their journey. Putting a lot of personal stuff out about myself as well. I'm definitely someone, as you know, that has no problem showing you my soul pretty much. And I think that that really does play a role in being successful in real estate. It's nothing you can fake, though. I think you have to be that person anyway.
Yeah, be authentic
Mhm.
to yourself and don't be so desperate because people can tell. And we
Yeah.
want to drop a little bit of contact details here just as we're still talking. If you're in the Tucson, Arizona, Catalina Foothills area and you want to contact Erin Frame, her phone number is 520-268-4789, and she's the Bale and Frame Realty Group. Bale, that's Bale, like Christian Bale, and framerealty.kw.com. You can check out just even what the Catalina Foothills area looks like and the amazing homes that are for sale. And so we've kind of started off talking about a little bit of your personality and expression and Facebook posting. And now I'm curious about what you've done as a career, right? You're a realtor. And what does that even entail? Why did you get into it? What do you do?
I've being a realtor, it's more than just a transaction, like I stated. I mean, it's really a huge part of someone's life. It's probably the biggest transaction and maybe one of the bigger things that they do in their life. I've always known from a young age. I actually had my real estate license when I was in Seattle years ago, but I couldn't afford to quit my day job basically. And I didn't feel like I was going to give proper service if I couldn't, do that full time. So it's taken me many years. I actually used to visit Tucson when I was young, and I used to tell myself, someday I'm going to live here and I'm going to sell real estate in the foothills, Catalina Foothills. And by the way, I sell all over Tucson, but I do live in the foothills, and I have a passion for it. One day I was driving and in the foothills, and it dawned on me. I had forgot I even ever said that to myself, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm actually selling real estate in the foothills. So that's how I've always just had a passion for it, and I just think it really fits my personality. So I'd say, that's pretty much kind of how I got into it. I think what real estate entails is just a real, being very detailed, having really good communication skills. You need to be able to, help people on this journey from start to end, go over things that they might encounter, just from my experience and the things I've dealt with, just get them comfortable, enough to trust you. I think trust is such a huge part in real estate as well. uh, and then of course just going through the whole process. It's a huge process, but it doesn't have to be scary, and that's my goal, is to really educate on the front end, go through the process, and by the end you're like, wow, yes, there can be some bumps along the road, because there's a lot of bumps in real estate, but of course if anyone is aware of these things on the front end, it's not going to be such a shock. And so I think that's just really not trying to scare people, but just saying this is what could happen and this is how we're going to deal with it. So they're confident, obviously going through the process.
I like it. And for some reason, the kids these days call it a funnel, but it's always existed, right? It's always been a
Yeah.
thing. And it's so you're helping people get from start to finish. And we've all seen or we've all experienced like this, that those emotional ups and downs with buying and selling real estate, right? Oh, well,
Hmm.
the counter offer didn't work out, or I
Yeah.
said I wanted a big backyard and the realtor didn't listen to me. So is there anything that maybe drives you crazy in your space? Do you see something maybe done incorrectly that you think that you do really well?
And I think that really does come back to the education. Like, for example, I hate to say this, but roofers, for example, they're all over the board. Like, we, of course, during inspections, we recommend, and I wouldn't even just recommend. I tell my people, you need to get inspections, because you don't want to buy what you don't know. It could be a nightmare. But roofers, I always tell them, we're going to get a few different estimates, because I will have one quote a brand new roof, one quote a $3,000 repair, and one quote an $800 repair. Now, how does especially a first time home buyer, how does somebody navigate that? So on the front end, I tell them, I'm sorry, I wish I could tell you that there are, people that I really trust in this area. I don't. I said, I've tried everybody, even the people I thought I trusted. It never turns out. So just knowing from the front end that we're going to have, these three estimates coming in, and we're going to talk about it at the time and say, okay, well, the general inspector didn't think that there were many issues with the roof. So let's try to compare. Maybe we go for the middle one. I mean, ultimately, it's the buyer's decision, but just having, that's something that would absolutely tear apart a deal. And it's torn apart deals in my past because I didn't handle it properly. So just knowing, having enough transactions underneath my belt to say, okay, this is something that we need to, discuss on the front end. Um, so yeah, I would say that's probably one of the main things, is just, learning from my experience, or educating from my experience.
Yeah, and yeah, experience and some of those adulting skills. And no one
Hmm.
really teaches you these things in school. You sort of have to figure it out. And especially like when you're renting and you move into a place and you get your parking space and the gardener's taken care of, there's a lot you don't have to think about. But then
Yeah,
when you're a homeowner, boy, if something breaks, it's on you to fix it. And there's some of these
absolutely.
kind of unspoken strategies are in place, right? Like you call
Yep.
around, you get a couple of estimates to fix the garage door. You try to go with mid-range. If you're dealing with a landscaper gardener, there's that issue of like, well, you might have to go through a few to get someone who's good or who's decent. And
Hmm.
just these things that we have to figure out, learn along the way. And you mentioned a little bit in there of like, there's like the emotional temperament, right? There's the patience, the like leadership, project management. So can you speak to that a little bit? Because I think we can all relate to when we're younger, we've had those moments of impatience and maybe anger. And then when we're older, hopefully we kind of figure out how to manage people better and manage ourselves better. So, like, what have you learned over the years? Like, what's the secret to dealing with people and getting these real estate deals to the finish line?
Not freaking out. I mean, I think it does take, quite some time to not let the transaction affect you as a realtor, because there's a lot of highs, a lot of lows. One thing I was always taught in the beginning is, don't get excited till you get the check to the bank, because nothing is 100% until that transaction is officially recorded. So just, really the things that might, rattle like a younger agent, I just take it in stride. I mean, even if I don't have, a bunch of stuff in the hopper right now, and I need that check, because that's what happens in real estate. It's very up and down. not ever setting yourself up to think that check's coming in, because that's just going to completely take you down, right? I had these, bills to pay or whatever. And, just knowing that I always go worst case scenario. What is the worst case scenario? What could happen right now that's the worst case scenario? And, it's different for a buyer than it is for a realtor, in a way, but, once, and I do try to educate, that to my buyers as well. Worst case scenario is this isn't the right house for you. If you're finding 50 things wrong with it and we're trying to push a deal together, is maybe that's not the house. Maybe it's something telling you that's not the house. Just being calm, like you said, throughout the transaction, and really making sure that all this has been discussed on the front end, because surprises during a deal, it's not a good thing. That's nothing that we want. We want them to say, oh, you're right. You did say that those three estimates were going to come in different. Or, you did say that if we have, all this stuff going on and you're not feeling good about it, it might not be the right house. It's like, I'm okay with walking away then. So just, you can't say enough on the front end. I mean, you could say it and scare them, but it's the way you present it, the way you deliver the information, and just letting them know that this is just from experience. And there's going to be buyers that don't handle it as well. But just making sure that they're prepared. Preparation is everything when it comes to a real estate deal.
I like it. Preparation and managing expectations. You're giving me flashbacks to sometimes when you're house hunting, and you see something, and you see the front room when you walk in, or the floors of the kitchen, and you just like fall in love with the house. And that's
Yep.
real scary. That's real tricky, right? To start
Yep.
imagining what the future might be like. And it's good to get motivated and excited, but then if you get attached to it and then it gets ripped out from under you, boy, that's kind of a scary place to be. And so you're all about preparation and all about educating us. And what's also really good about what you do on the Facebook is you don't just post the dancing videos like the TikTok kids, right? You educate people. You have the LowDown podcast and you have the Sober Fierce podcast. So as far as the educating that you've been doing, like what kind of content have you created? What do you like to talk about?
Um, y- uh, I guess just kind of the experience of, our deals, but I like to talk about Tucson. I don't know if that's what you're referring to, but like our Lowdown podcast that or Facebook Live that we do, it's with another lender that I've been doing it like for 8 years, and myself. And, we don't just talk about selling and lending and all of those types of things. We really try to incorporate life into that as well. So I don't know if that's what you're kind of referring to, but we love Tucson, and I think that when you come at it from the absolute affection that you have for the town that you live in, I think that it really resonates with people, even if they don't live here. They're like
Yes.
excited to see what's happening in Tucson. Like, I might have never even been there or never thought of going there, but now if I do, this is someone I might want to reach out to. I do have a Catalina Foothills Facebook group as well, that I've actually been able to meet buyers that way. But I do try to, educate people on that, this area, because it is so unique. We have, hiking and biking, and people don't realize that, like the Tour de France, for example, they train here. That's where they come because of our weather and our hills and our everything. Tucson is such a unique location. So I don't know if that's what you were saying, but those are the types of things I like to put out.
Yeah, and it's good to have fun and be a community leader and see what people respond to, engage with, and give more of that. And so I'm glad that you brought up the Tucson area because you're so right. You go to these local businesses sometimes. Sometimes I see you and the lender guy sitting outdoors or on that Facebook group. You post about stuff happening in the area. And when I was younger, I didn't understand the desert climate. I was like, it's so desolate. It's all dead. What's the point? Why wouldn't you want to live in like a lush, cool area? But where I'm in now, I'm in like central California, but it's not
Mhm.
near the Bay Area. It is kind of desolate and deserty. Not as it's not like full on cactus, but I can relate
Yeah.
to the flat land, the open space, the wilderness. It is kind of
Hmm.
cool, right? And I do prefer the hot to the cold. Who wants to be cooped up and shoveling snow off the walk and freezing? I
Not
do
this
prefer
girl.
yeah. It's like some of
Yeah.
us say like if I had to choose one, I'd prefer a little hotter than a little colder.
Yeah.
But like, what's your take? Like you say that you always dreamed about being in the area you are now. So what's the appeal? And you said there's hiking, but like if someone says, well, desert, I don't get it. What's the appeal? What would you say to someone like that?
I would say they're completely mistaken. The thing that Tucson offers, I mean, we have saguaro cactus that are hundreds and hundreds of years old, for example. I mean, it's so different. I'm from Seattle, so I come from the rain, I come from the green, and I think the grass is always greener for people too. Like people that live here all their lives, they want that. People that live there, they want this.
Right.
It isn't. I actually lived in Fresno. I don't know where you live, but I lived in Fresno for many years. And to me, that was flatter and it didn't have as much character to me. That was just coming here. It's the Sonoran Desert. I mean, you're in a different elevation. So we're actually in the hills here. We're 2,400 square feet on the ground. And then I'm up higher than that. There are hiking. We have Sabino Canyon that's world famous, and it's literally 5 minutes from my front door. There's numerous resorts. There's golfing here. There's, the sun shines. I think they said like almost every day of the year, but maybe 15. And a lot of those are our monsoon season, which is what we get in the summer, which is super hot. But these storms move in, and the smells that come with them, and it's basically nature's air conditioning. I was on the east side of town once. It was 104 degrees on my car, and a flash flood came down, and it just poured, and I pulled off to the side of the road, and I looked down, it was 68 degrees. I mean, that
Nice.
to me is like so cool, so extreme. The thunder and lightning storms we get here are just epic in the summer. So I love the heat. I'm one of those. I feel like if you want to cool off, go inside. Everybody has air conditioning. Your car has air conditioning. But 9 months out of the year here, you can be outside, truly. And to me, there's nothing like vitamin D, a little sunshine. So I think
Yeah.
that's what's different. It's not what people think. It's not desolate. There are areas that are like that, but Tucson just offers so much more. And there's so much character and history here. We're so close to the border. Just a lot of, great, amazing food. We're famous for that. We're like a mixology, like famous for drink making and stuff here. Like it's shocking what Tucson actually provides. So it's like a little big town, is what I say. We all kind of end up not knowing each other, but like somehow this person knows this person. It's just big enough, but yeah, and it's just big enough to not be nosy and be in people's business, but to really feel like you've connected with everybody, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you have the right moderation. And to answer your
Mhm.
question, I'm in a town called Turlock. Not sure if you've heard
I know
about
Turlock. Heck yeah, I
there,
know Turlock.
there we go. About 90
Yeah.
minute drive north of Fresno, and
Yep.
similar mindset, right? Of like, well, it's not too close to the action, but it's also not a podunk little town with no restaurants. There's a good
Yep.
mix, and then there's also different areas of town where like, well, if I want to be further out, I can be, and it's not that far and centrally located, so I can relate to a lot of that cool stuff. And like the Southwest and Arizona, it's such a cool, like you said, the cool character, right? Like anyone who's been
Mhm.
to like Las Vegas sort of knows like the deserty sort of stuff. And then when I first went to the Grand Canyon, I looked out and I was like, it was like this big ocean, right? But this
Yeah.
ocean of like the open air, and then us all the like the kind of, I don't know, like almost Mexican but not quite styles on the buildings and like the Adobe
Hmm.
look. Like it's just
Yep.
such a cool
Santa Fe.
area.
It's
Yeah,
beautiful, right? The colors, the murals, I mean, it's just got so much culture. I think if I was to describe Tucson, I would say culture. A lot of
very
culture
nice.
here, a lot of different, nationalities kind of melding. And that to me is exciting. Like I love that kind of stuff. So it's a great fit for me and it's kind of that mediocre. It's about a 500,000 people. Yeah, Phoenix North. I go to Phoenix and my heart stops. I used to be in a big city and I can't even handle it anymore because there's no freeways directly through Tucson. Like you can go by Tucson, but like if you want to go to the east side, everything's just roadway. So it's like I hardly am ever on a freeway anymore. Everything's just like, street lights and bumpy roads. I will say that because of the heat. Pretty bad roads here. It's probably my biggest negative about Tucson, but I can handle it.
Yeah, if that's the worst problem, at least you're
Yeah.
not being rained out every single day like in Seattle. And so
Ugh.
it's good to know about our options, right? Because sometimes people
Mhm.
think, oh, well, if I'm old and I'm retired, I'll go retire to Florida. But there's all kinds of places to visit for fun and places to live. And
Mhm.
I just like how you know your area, you know your town. It's always fun to drive or walk or just like see what's around. And I want to make sure
Mhm.
that in these last few minutes of our conversation, we cover the bases, right? We talked about you and being a realtor and going through this kind of home process a little bit, talked about Tucson. But I want to make sure like that we cover our bases, like I said. And so is there a missing, hidden, invisible question in our conversation? Is there something that I should be asking you? I just don't know to ask you.
I don't know if you want to bring up the Sober Fierce podcast. That's like how we met.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Just I quit drinking about 4.5 years ago now. It was just a huge problem in my life. And in the process, one of the ways I held myself accountable was to put out a podcast. And that's where we met, which you did such a great job with my stuff. I kind of got away from that, but just, having that connection with people and talking about, I think a lot of times people see alcohol and having an issue with it as embarrassment. And so one of the things I wanted to do with that podcast was to make it so it's just a really common, it's okay to talk about it. We're all struggling with something. And I feel like one thing I learned when I did that podcast was how many people are actually struggling and that do not talk about it. I had people reach out from my past that I haven't seen since like junior high school, and just said, thank you so much for talking about it, because it's just such a taboo thing. And I feel like society has changed quite a bit in the last, several years since I actually did that podcast. I think it's much more talked about than it used to be. And I just feel like rip the Band-Aid off, and the more, you can put out there that shows that you've gone through these things and you've experienced, what a lot of people are experiencing, and you're able to talk about them. I just feel like that can help others. And really, I guess that's what it boils down to with me is like, I really enjoy helping others in every way possible. And, I've considered restarting that podcast, and we'll talk more about that. But just to, if I can help people when it comes to that, I 100% should be doing that. Um, but I think that's probably, I guess, maybe what we haven't really talked about that I thought we should bring up.
Yeah, and it's good just to talk about this and have this awareness and have the human connection and speaking with people, because you're so right that the like alcoholism, addiction, all this stuff, it is misunderstood, and then AA is kind of extreme and sudden and scary, and some people do need that. And I think there was at one point when ChatGPT first started, and it's fun to like ask it for estimations or percentages, and I was saying like, well, what percentage do you think has a alcohol problem? And it was like close to 50%, because it was like, well, this percentage has maybe DUIs or gone to rehab. This percentage probably does have an addiction thing. This percentage probably, maybe they're not addicts, but they abuse it. And this other percentage probably just doesn't report it. It's like, whoa, when you think about it like that, like this alcohol is such a built-in part of our lives. And then it's also scary to talk about and embarrassing. But luckily, there's this thing called podcasting, like we said. And during the
Yeah.
pandemic, some bad and some good came out of it, right? The bad was some people were stuck in their homes, and you did hear about maybe the alcohol being abused, but then podcasting took off. And it's like podcasting seems to be a great way to passively connect with others and learn about the problem, right? Because if you just jump right into going to a group or going to the doctor or seeking help, that's like kind of like, I'm admitting that there's something happening. But if you just tune into a podcast, you take it in, right? And you kind of get yourself educated, and you know that, well, I'm not going to be on an FBI list because I did all these searches. I'm tuning in,
Yeah.
and they're telling me some of these things, so it's less scary to get the education. And it just seems like education in general is good, right? Educated about our emotions, about how to better control our addictions and our drinking and get help, and also education about Tucson and living in an amazing area and living that American dream, getting that home built. And so you've told us all these, ideas and things we should know about, but podcasting, it's always great to have a taste to tease. And you say, all right, if you liked a little bit of the Erin Frame experience, and you go and you find out more about what she has going on. So what are some next steps here? Someone kind of listen to our 4 or 5 sub conversations, and they say, all right, Erin Frame from Tucson, Arizona, Catalina Foothills, I need to follow this amazing Facebook page that she mentioned and the Facebook group, and check out her as a realtor. What are some next steps? What should someone do?
Well, they could always, call me, which is the phone number that you put on there earlier. You could also go to Facebook, and it's Catalina Foothills group is what it's called. You could definitely join that. We try to, keep people in the know when it comes to the foothills. um, you could also, look up our LowDown Tucson, which is what it's called, and you could kind of. Unfortunately, Facebook kind of stopped keeping their videos now, and I just
Really?
haven't been able to just download and upload all those things, but we really do try to put out a lot of information about Tucson and the real estate market when it comes to our every Friday around 8:30 Facebook Live that we do. So that's another option. You could go to our website, like I think you are going to post, but Bale and Frame Realty at kw.com. So you could definitely do that as well. I am with Keller Williams Southern Arizona, great brokerage. So we, not only have our group, but we have a huge support system when it comes to Keller as well. So I want to thank them for that.
And you're all about those connections, right? You have your support system. And so those are
Yeah.
some amazing resources you drop there. If someone is listening on a podcast or just watching us, that's one thing. But then to be like, okay, these cacti that she mentioned, these hiking trails that she mentioned, let me go and look at some of those pictures. So you join that Catalina Foothills group and then LowDown Tucson. And all of them are a reason to have a real podcast, right, Miss Erin? Because that way you record it once and it's on all these platforms. So if Facebook someday says, hey, we're going to change things to say, hey, it's still on Spotify and YouTube and all the places. And you mentioned earlier about how some of the kids these days prefer Instagram or TikTok. And so it's so important to get out there and be prolific, consistent, reliable. And so that way, when someone tunes in all these platforms, they find out what's going on, right, with the local businesses, with sober living, with the lifestyle, with what's happening in real estate, happening in Tucson, Arizona. It's good to be multifaceted, right? We can't just be one singular thing. We can't just talk about those real estate deals. We have to talk about the variety, the characters that are in our life. And so what's
what makes us,
exciting,
right?
what makes us us, and it's never just one thing. And so what has you excited about the future? What's coming up soon?
Well, what does have me excited about the future? Honestly, we had a team of agents that we recently decided to not do that anymore. So what's exciting to me is that I get to kind of jump back into a smaller group of people, which is sorry.
We're back.
What
It's
what
okay.
made me, I think stand out in Tucson to begin with, and that's getting back to my open houses and more podcast things and more Facebook lives and just really kind of delving back into that and just finding my identity again, because a lot of what I was doing was supporting other agents and teaching them. So I'd say that that's something to maybe watch out for, is just me being a little bit more active on social media and getting kind of my footing again, when it comes to learning more things about podcasting and so on. So I'd say that that's probably kind of my next step, is to really try to put myself out there a bit more and see if I can get a even, further reach when it comes to helping people.
Very cool. Rediscovering you and getting back to your roots. Well, I like it. And so you can find out about that Keller Williams page at baleandframerealty.kw.com. There's a list of homes for sale. You can type in a specific address or neighborhood and see all the there's the beautiful landscape, but also the really cool homes that are out there. And as far as giving us one lasting tidbit of advice or something to think about, to chew on. It's always fun with a podcast to end with a bang instead of a whimper. So it's time for the scary part of the show where I try to stump you. I try to put you on the spot by asking you about a fun quote or lesson that has served you in life or in business. So what do you have for a quote or lesson?
Well, there's one I did put down. At the heart of real estate is community. And I think that people often forget about that. When we lead with integrity and care, we help more than clients, we help neighborhoods grow. And I'd say that's something that I try to live by, because I've always been a community realtor, I guess you can call me. And it's not just about the money, it's about the community. It's about um, how can we make an impact, a legacy, things along those lines. So I'd say that's it, making sure you obviously including, think about community in everything you do, because that's where we are, right? That's our people.
Oh yeah, without that you don't have anything. So that's great. Those are great values to live by. You mentioned integrity and care, and most importantly, community. And if this sounds good to you, if you want to find out more about the Catalina Foothills, if you have some real estate needs, 520-268-4789. That is baleandframerealty.kw.com. You can add Miss Erin Frame. That's Erin with an EERIN FRAME, like reframe your future. So Erin Frame on Facebook and LinkedIn. You can check out that Lowdown Tucson podcast in the Catalina Foothills Facebook group. It's been wonderful. I want to say catching up, but meeting you for the first time, Miss Erin. Such a
So
blast
weird.
just talking about
Totally feel
life,
like I
talking
know
about
you.
you. Right,
Yeah.
right. It's a weird
Yeah.
deja vu, but we like that
It
feeling.
is.
And so check
Yes.
out
I love it.
Erin Frame from the Catalina Foothills, and thanks for being here.
All right. It was so nice to talk to you, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.